morning, everyone. I'm seeing participants come in. I'm just going to give everyone just a few minutes so we know we're getting everyone who's registered. Okay, great. We'll just have people continue to join us. Welcome so much to our 2022 annual meeting. I'm Ellen Keith, and I'm the board chair of Chicago Collections Consortium, and I'm the director of research and access at the Chicago History Museum. Next slide, please, Jeannie. So I'm excited to share what's gone on the last year and what's to come. As a few matters of business, we're recording today's webinar, and we're going to be posting it on the website. We have a full program ahead, so let's begin with our land acknowledgement. The Chicago Collections Consortium acknowledges and is grateful for the Native peoples who laid the foundation for the city of Chicago and for the diverse indigenous nations that reside in Chicago today. When you visit our member organizations and when you experience Chicago's outdoor spaces, we invite you to join in offering respect and gratitude to the many indigenous peoples that reside in the Chicagoland region, as well as their ancestors. Next. Our agenda is above. So we've got a full agenda, so you'll see what's happening. With that, I will say that we're very excited to have Maple Walker Lloyd, Block Club Chicago's Director of Development and Community Engagement. As many of you know, Block Club Chicago brings the news of Chicago's diverse neighborhoods and communities, and we look forward to hearing more about this incredible resource. Welcome, Maple. I'll turn it over to her.
Thanks so much, Ellen. And before I dive in, I just want to thank I really appreciate you guys inviting Block Club to speak with during your annual meeting. We really appreciate this opportunity, any opportunity, honestly, to share our work. So thank you guys so much, and congrats on 10 years on such a wonderful accomplishment. So I'll just go ahead and dive right in. For those of you who may not know, Block Club Chicago, we are a nonprofit reader-funded journalist-run newsroom that's reflective of and responsive to the city's neighborhoods. We launched in 2018 by former DNA Info Chicago editors and reporters after the site was abruptly shut down in 2017. Chicagoans had lost a vital hyperlocal news source in their neighborhoods. And so when we initially launched, we had 5 reporters, 3 editors, and we covered 8 neighborhoods. 4 years after our launch, and I'm excited to say our 4-year anniversary was last week, we have more than 18,100 subscribers who pay $59 a year to support our work. Our staff now consists of 14 reporters, 4 editors, 1 breaking news editor, myself, our newsletter and hotline manager. So we have a total of 21 full-time staffers and 3 part-time staff, along with a handful of freelancers. Next slide, please. So our full-time reporters are embedded in the communities that they cover, so they don't parachute in once or twice to tell a story. Most of our reporters also live in the communities that they cover as well. And so this ground level approach leads to a more accurate portrayal of a neighborhood and earns the trust of our readers. And it's imperative that our staff is reflective of the communities that they cover as well. So half of our full-time reporters identify as people of color, so they mirror the diversity of the communities that they serve. And our reporters are geographically assigned to cover a small area of the city. So typically it's 2 or 3 neighborhoods instead of being assigned to cover a traditional beat like cops or courts. And again, this allows our reporters to build a level of trust over time and not just popping in and out to tell a story. Next slide, please. So Block Club is over 70% reader funded with more than, as I mentioned earlier, 18,100 subscribers, paid subscribers, and we have over 120,000 people signed up to receive our free and daily neighborhood specific newsletters. Block Club has a freemium content model, and what that means is All of our South and West Side coverage is free, along with our breaking news, election, public health, and service journalism. Outside of that, readers can read 5 premium stories, and typically they're features or niche development pieces each month for free before they're then asked to subscribe to our ad-free site. Next slide, please. So we've learned that our stories, that for our stories to have impact, they must have reach. And so we were able to build a massive audience in less than 4 years by making our stories engaging, accessible, and relevant to our neighbors' lives. We attract about 3 million page views each month from more than 1 million unique readers. More than 120,000 people, as I mentioned earlier, subscribe to our free daily newsletters. We've built up a large social media audience on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with over 500,000 followers combined. We also have more than 1,000 people signed up to receive our breaking news text alerts. Next slide, please. So how is Block Club sharing and archiving content? So there are several ways in which we're doing this. We want to make sure that we're accessible and folks have access to our content in several different ways. And that could be directly on our website through our digital content, COVID-19 hotline, our podcast, or TV show. And I'll get into each of those specifically a bit later. And we also believe in collaborations and partnerships with other local media outlets, along with organizations across Chicago that are doing amazing work for their neighborhoods. And then you can also find our content by simply doing a Google search. So if you know the title of a story, if you know the reporter's name or a major keyword, like for example, a name of a restaurant, you can put that in the Google search and then put Block Club Chicago before or after the name, and typically the story will come right up. Next slide, please. So even outside of our news stories, we're making a difference. So we have a free bilingual coronavirus hotline, which launched during the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. So readers can call, text, or email their coronavirus questions. And this was another significant step in serving the communities that we cover, particularly those without internet and those who are Spanish speaking. To date, we've answered more than 1,000 questions in English and Spanish, helping people find where they can get tested, how they can find rent relief, where they can get vaccinated, among many other questions. Those questions have come from Chicago residents all across the city, from Rogers Park on the far north side to Calumet Heights on the far south side. Next slide, please. So Block Club's inaugural podcast, It's All Good. It launched in April 2021. A year after the launch, we have almost 100,000 downloads. It's hosted and produced by John Hanson. The podcast focuses on positive news in the city. John looks to our existing and upcoming coverage and then selects stories for the podcast. He then combines interviews with the reporters who wrote the story with first-person interviews with the subject of the story. And this produces a 20-minute weekly episode. And you can find all of those episodes on Apple or Spotify. Next slide. So in April, we launched a TV show in partnership with Weigel Broadcasting for a weekly 30-minute program to highlight great stories in Chicago. It's called On the Block. The show airs at 7 p.m. Thursday nights on the U and 10 a.m. on Saturdays on CW26. They also post the episodes on their website after it airs, so you can stream the show online. This TV show is just one more way to make ourselves accessible beyond our site, email, social media, podcast, and radio. So please have a quick snippet to see what our TV show entails.
Chicagoans are ready for a new and different type of local news.
Everybody gonna pass the ball one time.
no anchor desk.
Gun buybacks are supposed to help reduce violence. The city's hosted several dozen of these events.
Selfie reports.
Chicago natives Mimi Cabrera and Abraham Cortez launched their clothing line Henry Finna.
Longer stories.
I started cutting hair at the age of 11.
Includes you.
Giving ladies green clothes and pizzas.
Watch On the Block, only on CW26 Chicago and the U. Chicagoans are ready for a new and different.
Thank you so much for sharing that video. So I hope you guys are able to check that out at some point when you have a free moment. So one of the many fun things about being at Block Club is getting calls from other journalists who are in the same shoes we were in 4 years ago. They want to start something new and they need advice. So we've been on countless calls helping them out, giving them strategy, our context, our experiences, whatever they need. And we're constantly talking with other newsroom about what works and what doesn't. As we know, hyperlocal news is so important to our communities. Next slide, please. So Chicago has a very robust and diverse local media landscape. We work closely with other small, independent, and nonprofit newsrooms in Chicago to increase our editorial capacity and build bridges to new audiences. Block Club believes in prioritizing partnerships over competition, especially as local news is gutted. When we're working together, we can achieve so much more. So we share content with Chalk Beat Chicago, City Bureau, ProPublica Illinois, the BGA, the Daily Line, Borderless, The Trace, Austin Weekly, and other newsrooms in Chicago. One of our most prominent partnerships is with legacy print newsroom Austin Weekly, which republishes our West Side stories. We also co-produce a twice weekly newsletter with information, stories, events, and resources that matter most to West Side communities. In addition, highlighting Block Club and Austin Weekly's West Side reporting, this newsletter routinely links to West Side focused reporting from some of the other newsrooms that I just mentioned, and this newsletter has over 6,000 dedicated subscribers. Next slide. And we also firmly believe in partnering with community organizations not involved with the news as well. So for instance, I have several examples. For Black History Month, we held a virtual conversation with historian Sherman Dilla Thomas, activist Fred Hampton Jr., and Folded Map creator Tanika Lewis Johnson about the Black Chicagoans who have made our city great and how their legacies shape our city and nation today. And last year, we also partnered with Folded Map Project for a series of stories about the stigmas surrounding the South and West sides of Chicago and how misconceptions negatively impact Chicago residents. Our West Side reporter, Pascal Savino, he moderated a conversation last year called Reimagining Policing in Chicago, and during which 3 community leaders shared their thoughts on the history of policing in Chicago and how neighborhoods, especially on the South and West sides, would be served moving forward. And as we all know, so many of us had to pivot during the pandemic. And in early 2020, just before that happened, Block Club brought together 21 organizations for our free West Side resource fair. Residents could get free meals, legal help, toiletries, and blood pressure screenings. They could also get help finding a job or be matched with mentoring or trauma programs. And one last thing I'll mention before we move on to, also during the pandemic, we hosted a virtual back to school event as students had to start remote learning. Readers donated supplies or volunteered at South and West Side organizations that serve these students. And all of the organizations received everything that they needed and so much more thanks to the support of our readers. So these are just some of the ways that we're collaborating with organizations in our neighborhoods. Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. And so please take a look at this short video on how our reporters are covering the city.
Chicago news is more than just crime and politics.
There's
There's something missing when news crews parachute into a neighborhood only when something bad happens. Voices go unheard.
Desde el principio.
What if reporters were in your neighborhood every day? We're Block Club Chicago. We believe in truly local coverage, building the relationships needed to find both big and small stories. We believe in the power of being there because most of our reporters actually live in the communities they cover. A more accurate portrayal of your neighborhood starts with being in your community every day. We believe in your support. As a nonprofit site, we don't want to be dependent on hedge funds, billionaires, or anyone with an interest in shaping the news how they want it. Instead, we're depending on you to subscribe or donate. We're Block Club Chicago. Join us.
Thank you so much for sharing that video. So just as our reporters are covering the stories of the folks who live and work in the neighborhoods they cover, I encourage you to check out A Glimpse Back at Chicago's Communities and Neighborhoods. It's a digital exhibit by the Chicago Collections Consortium, as they've collected documents that share the history of the people that have lived, struggled, and persevered in the city for over 189 years. I thank you all so much for your attention and time, for learning more about Block Club Chicago. For any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll throw my email in the chat. It's maple@blockclubshy.org. Thank you guys so much again, and congratulations on your 10 years, something to definitely be celebrated. And I'll throw it back over to Ellen.
Maple, thank you so much. This was so interesting. I remember following the whole crash of DNA info and seeing all of the Block Club people regroup and form Block Club Chicago. And I attended a great program, Pascal Sabino and some others. It wasn't the policing, but it was another thing on the West Side that was just fascinating with community activists. And of course, Kelly Bauer's coverage of the Loretto Hospital. So the breaking news, the neighborhoods, it's all just wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Okay, next slide, please, Jeannie. So thank you to our governing members as we move on. That's a tough act to follow, but we're also about all the communities and neighborhoods and that Block Club covers. So we've got coverage from our governing members from across the city. Next slide. We've got our affiliates with all this growing list of members. So sorry, let me get back on track after gushing over Block Club. I want to recognize UIC, our governing member, their support of Explore. They host our portal manager, Kate Flynn, and DePaul University hosts our executive director, Jeannie Long. So UIC and DePaul, thank you so much. And a special thank you to our website administrator, John Saplicki, for his thoughtful help and support this year with our anniversary efforts. As you can see, our associate and affiliate members, participating members continue to grow. We've been just delighted to have other members join us this year. You'll see a list of new members further on in the program. Next slide. And our corporate partners. These are collections we're very excited to share. Union League Club of Chicago, Henry Crown and Company Archives, and the Cubs. Next slide, please. Here we go, new members. Illinois Holocaust Museum, the Chicago chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and Northeastern Illinois University. It's been very exciting to have membership grow in this challenging time. We know that people have have thoughts about where they're going to spend their money this year, and we're very glad that they have chosen to spend a portion of it on membership in Chicago Collections Consortium. We just continue to grow. Next slide, please. We're also thankful to have generous supporters from foundations, immediate outreach and support shown by the Terra Foundation, Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly, the Driehaus Foundation. In the pandemic has been essential to our well-being, and we are extremely grateful for their support. And we're excited to add the new support of Wintrust Bank this year, and they are the sponsor of our annual meeting. Thank you, Wintrust. Next slide, please. Turning to some recognitions. This is all Jeannie Long, our executive director, and Kate Flynn, Our portal manager are our only paid staff of the consortium, so a lot of work is also done by our staff from our member institutions. So we want to thank them this year for allowing us to reach our goals. Next slide, please. Here is our FY21-22 Board of Directors. Next slide. Our committee chairs. Next slide. So we've got a lot of task force and committees, and we just cannot do it without them. We have 14 engaged committees and task forces that help us do all the work that we do. So we're very grateful for their time and leadership in guiding our members. The collaborative spirit is something that is really fostered among them, and they speak to the power of our organization. Next slide, please. We've got some committee chairs rotating off, although we're very grateful that they are staying on their committees. But Rachel Cole, co-chair of communications, who also runs our Facebook and Instagram accounts, and Megan Keller-Young and Natalie Wheaton, who are co-chairs of the digital exhibits committees. Thank you so much for your service. Next slide. We just want to take a moment. We know that there have been colleagues who have passed this year, so please just take a moment to acknowledge and recognize them, and we're hoping to get through the other side. Next slide, please. So now we're moving on to the election of directors. This is in accordance with CCC's bylaws. So we'll pause for a brief moment. Governing members, you're going to receive a ballot in your email. Don't worry about filling it out right now during the annual meeting, just so you can continue to focus on what we're going over, but you will receive a ballot. And now I'll present our board slate. Alice Schreier, Roger and Julia Baskey's Vice President for Collections and Library Services at the Newberry Library. Next slide, please. We're going to move on to our year in review. 2022 is our 10-year anniversary. So this year has allowed us to reflect back on the work of our founding members, our early committees, and the vision they had for CCC. We recognize their hard work, and we know that our work is actually just beginning, and I'm looking forward to 20 years in 2024, 2030, 2032. Math was not my strong suit, as you can tell. We kicked off our anniversary celebration on March 3rd. We had a panel discussion spotlighting Chicago's diverse communities led by Bernie Riley, with CCC member panels Jeremy Bucher, Collection and Archives Manager of the National Hellenic Museum, Sarah Chapman, Executive Director of MediaBurn Independent Video Archive, and Jorge Felix, Studio Arts and Exhibition and Archive Program Director of the Puerto Rican Arts Alliance. And don't forget that recordings of this are on our events website. Next slide, please. We are excited that Lori Lightfoot, our mayor, proclaimed March 3rd Chicago Collections Day. Next slide. We're thrilled to have our digital exhibit that was also kicked off at our March 3rd event, A Glimpse Back at Chicago's Communities and Neighborhoods, very thoughtfully curated by Caroline Yanakopoulos from Loyola University Chicago Women in Leadership Archives. I encourage you to take a look at it. It's a wonderful collection of so many interesting resources from all of our members. Next slide. And this could not have been accomplished without the CCC Anniversary Task Force, led by Mary Ann Ryan, our chair, Laura Bearfield, Mary Case, Caroline Yanakopoulos, Jeannie Long, Michelle McCoy, Bernie Riley, Alice Schreier, and Molly Szymanski. They have been working on this long before 2022, and their work has involved the promotion of CCC at various national conferences. They've been organizing new initiatives and programming efforts. The cherry on the cake of this celebration year is that United States Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, will be speaking to us this fall. I am thrilled. Thank you, Mary Ann, and thank you, Task Force. Next slide, please. We're very excited to share that we got a poster commissioned by Jen Farrell, Star Shaped Press. So there is a commemorative poster to be had. Look for it soon. Next slide. We continue to launch digital exhibits. So in April, there is a digital timeline also available on our website, and it's a snapshot of our first 10 years. This was a wonderful event held last month in partnership with the Poetry Foundation and Chicago Public Library, Harold Washington Library Center. We are now launching an annual poetry contest for high school students in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. Students were required to be inspired by an item on the Explore website and write a poem. And I encourage you to take a look at the poetry on the website with their accompanying photos. We were so impressed with the talent of these young writers. Jeannie and I and other board members were there along with the students and their families at this event. And I will share, it was the evening of the tragedy in Uvalde, and Jeannie and I looked at each other and sort of wondered how we could go on with an event that evening. And the young students and their families and the poetry that they shared was just really inspiring and just was a lovely, lovely evening. And we had to kick people out. The students loved talking to each other. They came from all across the city. They came from suburbs. And so we're looking forward to it even more next year. Next slide, please. We have a 10-year anniversary website. So there are all these happenings on our anniversary page. There is a recent journal contribution by our founders, Mary Case and David Spadafora, and that's published through Johns Hopkins University Press, as well as a video of Mary and David reflecting on our history. Next slide, please. Partnerships. We would not be anywhere with our partnerships. I was thinking of that when Maple was talking about block clubs partnerships. We know firsthand the value of collaborations, and our strategic partnerships have helped us share our resources and reach new markets while promoting our member collections. Next slide. Our partnerships include Art Design Chicago Now, Chicago Area Archivists, Chicago Cultural Alliance, Chicago Public Schools, the Caxton Club, our sister consortium, Black Metropolis Research Consortium, My Block, My Hood, My City, and toward a National Finding Aid Network. These partnerships allow us to expand and to reach new audiences, to share our diverse and rich history of Chicago. We have been busy sharing information on our consortium's resources. We took it on the road. Next slide. Presentations were done to Northwestern University's Osher Lifelong Learning Institute in April, the Rotary Club in May, and the Daughters of the American Revolution in May. We are always thankful when CCC members share information regarding our organization. And please let us know if you would be interested in presenting on CCC's behalf at your next opportunity. Next slide. One of our flagship initiatives was our Ask Us Chicago Collections Cooperative Reference Committee. We continue to provide virtual reference services to students, researchers, and the general public, and this year answering close to 100 inquiries. Thank you so much to the Cooperative Reference Committee. Next slide. Member workshops. We've been grateful to have member workshops throughout the year. The virtual component makes it easier for more people to attend. There's a metadata hopper workshop in fall of 2021, a presentation from Alliance Française, Francis Willard House, the WCTU archives, and the Chicago Cultural Alliance on Beyond the Pandemic, which is a fascinating program on pivoting, our favorite word, when things closed. And also then an introduction to web archiving by Samantha Abrams, the head of collections at Member Center for Research Libraries. Public lectures. We've been blessed to be able to give a lot of public lectures this year, and also to partner with members on doing this. So we had an author talk on the Lakefront, Public Trust and Private Rights, partnership with the Union League Club, and held through the Caxton Club. Next slide. We really enjoy our conversations with Chicago Collections. This one was with Chicago Cubs, our new corporate member. Patrick Manaher, the Chicago Cubs manager of Authentics and Archives, shared how the Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field archival collections provide a unique glimpse into Chicago and American history. I remember attending that, and it was just fascinating, just hearing about Wrigley, all of the archival material that they have, and we look forward to seeing more of that and explore. Next slide. This was another wonderful talk. This is Ida B. Wells' author, Michelle Duster, who is Ida B. Wells' great-granddaughter. And this was support from the Illinois Humanities, again, another wonderful supporter, and our member, Bronzeville Historical Society. Michelle Duster talked to us about her process of researching Ida B. the Queen. Next slide. Another great public lecture, Tempest Hazel, on 60 Inches from Center, which is a wonderful organization. Again, we partnered with the Gaxton Club, and 60 Inches documents the stories of Chicago artists, cultural workers, architects, organizers, memory workers, and writers of the LGBTQ+, FEM, BIPOC, diasporic, and disabled communities. I encourage you also to check out 60 Inches from Center's website. Next slide. Public lectures. This was a fascinating discussion, and it was scheduled for an hour and a half, and I remember we could have gone even longer. This was a partnership with Chicago area archivists about access to Chicago's municipal records. And so Emiliano Aguiar, Northwestern, Lakedra Chavez, the Marshall Project, Edward Remus, Northeastern Illinois University, Joshua Salzman, Northeastern Illinois University, Sam Stecklow, the Invisible Institute and Southside Weekly, and Matt Topic, Levy and Levy's Freedom of Information Act practice. For anyone who is interested in anything to do with trying to get any information out of the government, this was a wonderful talk. It was recorded and on our website. Next slide. Our partnership with Tara has really just been invaluable to us. They are so supportive, and whatever our content committee thinks of and our programming committee comes up with, Tara supports us. So this was in partnership with the Design Museum and supported by Tara, and it was a discussion with Chicago's cultural change makers. Next slide, please. It's the anniversary. I should know this, we've got an exhibit here at the Chicago History Museum, Extinguishing the Myths of the Great Chicago Fire, Carl Smith's book, The Great Chicago Fire, our museum's milestone exhibit, the 150th anniversary. It's right in front of me. It's the 100th anniversary of the fire, 50th anniversary of the fire. So we were very happy to have Carl and the partnership of the Newberry to do this public lecture. Next slide, please. We continued our second in our series of discussions with Chicago's new directors. So we had Rhea Ballard Thrower, new dean at UIC, Chris Brown, new commissioner of Chicago Public Library, and Esteban Montano, new dean of libraries at Dominican University. And we did this in partnership again with Black Metropolis Research Consortium. One of the wonderful things about this city is how eager everyone is to partner, and the BMRC is one of our favorite organizations to partner with. Next slide, please. We continued our conversations with Chicago Collections, and this was the Chicago Botanic Garden. Leora Siegel, the senior director of the Lenhart Library, walked us through some of Chicago Botanic Garden's fascinating collections. And you can also see some of them in Explore, and it was just a wonderful moment to see what the Botanic Garden had. Next slide, please. This was our first in-person lecture. This was Meet the Author, Micah Mescua, in conversation with James Ackerman. This is in partnership at the Newberry. And if anyone was a little trepidatious about attending an in-person lecture, people came out in droves for this. This was a wonderful talk. Mike we could have listened to him all night. And I encourage you to pick up his book. The Newberry Library store sold out that night. So there were a lot of disappointed people in line, but if you were like me, a disappointed person in line, you ran out the next day and got it someplace else. Sorry, Newberry Library store. But this is a fascinating talk, and Mike will be doing further talks throughout the year. It's just a really important book. Next slide, please. And our really our shining jewel is our Explore portal. And let's provide an update on that. Next slide, please. What's new? First-time contributors, the Chicago chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and the Grove National Historic Landmark. So take a look and explore and look for their holdings. Next slide. So like the scrapbook. I'm so excited. I'm always excited to see new things and explore. So I'm looking forward to browsing these. Next slide. And the Grove. Wilmette Historical Museum as well. So 2022 to 2023, what is next? Next slide, please. Our strategic plan. So a review of our strategic plan's key organizational goals directs our efforts as an organization. Next slide. So our organizational goals from 2019 to 2022 have been enhance public access to rich Chicago-focused collections, foster an engaged community through programming, build a strong, involved membership, and sustain an effective, efficient organization. So what's coming up in the future? We are going to redo the strategic plan. We're going to have a strategic plan task force to begin working on the update. We had such fun doing it. Mary Case, Sharon Bostick, Jeannie Long and I were part of the original task force. And believe me when I say this was the most fun task force I've ever worked on. And our next task force will be equally fun. So I'm looking to our board members and other members out there. We will be calling on you. This is a very productive thing to do and contributes to the health of our organization. So these specific directions are guiding our efforts in the year ahead, confirming the consistency of our work and our member sense of values and engagement. Next slide. Some upcoming virtual public programs. Conversations with Chicago Collections, the Ukrainian National Museum, and that will be virtual. And that's June 23rd, September 14th. Chicago Murals, a discussion with Meg Duguid, and Bernard Williams. October 4th, conversation with Carla Hayden, Librarian of Congress. Again, so excited for Carla Hayden, oh my God. And December 1st, Melanie Newport will be talking about her book, A Community of the Condemned, Chicago and the Transformation of American Jails. Dr. Newport has been so supportive of the organization. She's been an early donor, an early enthusiast. We've looked to her for quotes when we've needed to provide letters of support, and I'm very excited to see her book. Next slide, please. Upcoming member workshops, coming in late summer. Why accessibility matters and how to check for it. Our metadata hopper workshop and another digital exhibits workshop. Next slide, please. Okay, call for participation. We are always looking for ways to get involved with CCC. Next slide. Join a committee or task force. These are some of the committees and task forces that are looking for additional members, programming, membership, communications, content, cooperative reference, development, user support and assessment, and more. So if you are interested, just reach out to us and ask us about being involved in any of these committees. It is very rewarding. Everyone is dedicated to furthering the success of CCC, and participation is welcome. Next slide, please. Share us with friends on social media. We're active on Twitter. Sign up for our e-news. Look at the portal. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Next slide. Questions. I really thought I'd be running right up until 11 but I am a really fast talker, so we have time for questions. My apologies for racing through this. or people don't mind having, a little time back. So if there aren't any questions, I'll just encourage you to reach out to any of our board, any of our committee members, any of our members. And next slide, and we will adjourn from this wonderful slide from the Century of Progress. Good afternoon and come again. So thank you so much again. Thank you for, hopefully your ears caught up with my fast talking, and thank you to Maple Walker Lloyd and Block Club Chicago. We're very grateful for your participation today. We always love, we're in total sync with the aims of Block Club Chicago.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.